the timing of ACED is absolutely perfect to sort of provide critical focus and momentum as we go forward. I think also, and Ruth may touch on this, I think we've recognised internally in discussions I've had with Ruth how important the arts and cultural sector is going to be in terms of our recovery work, particularly within our communities, but also with our economy. And there's a strong link that's being made. We're looking at it, how the cultural sector can link into tourism. There's a really important role that our cultural tourism sector can play in terms of helping our district to recover. So there's a discussion that's going on internally about that at the moment. I'd like to think that this network, this forum can help play a really significant part in those discussions. It goes without saying this is a great opportunity for networking, sharing ideas and coming together to help us as an organisation to sort of shape our next 5 to 10 years as we look to review our own cultural strategy. And I see personally, there's a really significant role for ACED, to contribute to that. So I won't say any more, but from my perspective, it's perfect timing. There's a really positive feeling internally within our organisation about the role of arts and culture. And I'm personally really excited to be part of, the wide discussion that's going to continue this morning and hopefully onwards from here. So if I leave it there, Ruth, hopefully that's given some sort of context and huge support internally.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm just going to share my screen. Super. So first of all, I would just like to thank you all for completing the survey, which is going to be the sort of the thrust of what we're going to be looking at today. And the survey has essentially triggered some questions, which I'd like us all to have a think about collectively. And then towards the end of the meeting, we'll have a look at the format for future meetings. So of the 86 respondents, we had a really good cross-section across all art disciplines, as you can see there, strong in the visual arts, but also strong in music and theatre. And we had some other great professions as well, sort of urban design, a teacher, cultural, sociologist of culture. So showing a great breadth there. Similarly with arts organisations, ones that, and it did highlight to us ones that, don't sort of fit into those categories and how we could potentially rework that in the future. So the first question we asked was, why do you think a cultural network is important for East Devon? I had some really great feedback on this and people have really taken the time to consider it. I just wanted to share a few of those highlights. This is hugely important as the forum coordinates, cultivates and allows like-minded creative and cultural groups and events to share information to potentially work together on future events. Connection via networking creates synergy and momentum. Creators are needed within the community to release innovation, especially at a time of enforced distancing and physical separation. A cultural network will help to enable and enhance meaningful collaboration and communication between arts organisations and practitioners. This is vital for the arts to thrive, especially in dispersed rural communities such as East Devon. And this is the one I particularly liked, because promoting creative arts as an insight into the human condition is essential to an active democracy. The next question we asked was, what should the ACED network be used for? And I've grouped these responses into 5 categories: networking and communication, funding, news and support, participation and collaboration, marketing, audience development and programming. So I just thought I'd share some of the highlights from those responses as well, because you'll see how it fits into the look and feel of what ACED is and can be. So keeping EDDC reliably informed about the various projects undertaken and prompt the council to act in support of artistic and cultural projects. Connect also with people beyond East Devon so as to enrich exchanges that might lead to real events in the region that share knowledge, encourage creativity and keep people in the loop. It could also take local projects further afield to be appreciated elsewhere. I thought that was really important, that thinking not just that the forum is inward looking, but it's supporting our outward face as well and reaching other audiences nationally and internationally. and to create a database so practitioners can spread over a huge geographical area, can feel more connected with one another. In relation to funding and support, key about sponsorship and commercial support, definitely working together would help that. Develop a strategic approach so that we can gain big funds from Arts Council, and collaborate to generally make a stronger bid. Participation and collaboration. Was again really interesting just to sort of help us think about the look and feel and the purpose of the forum. It should exemplify diversity and inclusion in order to break down art's reputation as being exclusive, which can result in exclusion. Used ACE for engagement with all. And I thought this was a particularly important one as well. Signpost young people to progression opportunities. So we all know with the cuts and after the pandemic, you know, having a career in the arts is looking less and less likely. And then whatever we can do to support our young people gain access to the wonderful careers that we have would be fabulous. Sharing skills and knowledge could help to make arts projects happen and wider participation at all levels. And culture is for everyone of all ages and abilities, and hubs such as this can connect people who might otherwise slip through the net socially because they don't live in a big city or conurbation. And marketing, we had a lot of responses on marketing, which I'll come back to at a later date. So there was a drive for a website listing the cultural initiatives in East Devon. What we need is a central focus to raise awareness of our wonderful events and opportunities to the local communities, and also as a way to promote our beautiful landscape throughout the winter, to extend our tourism season beyond the summer holidays. I had quite a lot of comments on actually the winter season. A big social issue is that the sector is incredibly fragmented and small scale. This is also an advantage because there's a lot going on, but it means that events and activities are inadequately promoted, sometimes poorly attended, and often underachieved. And then this was an interesting point as well about whether it can be used for programming when we're looking at big national agendas such as climate change or diversity, whether we could link up and indeed host international artists and ambitious projects. So thinking about all of those responses, I think that the purpose that we set out with ACED synergizes with that, looking at best practice, communication, promotion of local authority arts and culture-led economic growth initiatives, engagement, which enriches our communities and visitors and is a supportive network. One aspect that I think is absolutely clear that we do need to include in the forum is around inclusivity and relevance and environmental responsibility. And to do that, what we would like to do is to invite champions from sectors, from certain areas of expertise into the forum to represent performance, craft, the visual arts, but also climate emergency and Black representation. And then those champions can feed up to the other platform, which includes the councillors at those forums. And at this opportunity, I would just like to take a moment to introduce our first champion of ACED, which is Ella S. Mills from Talking on Corners. Okay, I'll carry on and hopefully Ella will give a little introduction when she's next free. So just on the champions, if you would like to become a champion for ACE, please do get in touch with us. So it's really important that that your specific sector within the creative industries is represented, and the knowledge that you can bring. So it would be a great support to us going forward. So the questions, as I said, the survey did reveal some tensions and some challenges, and there was a definite need for support in marketing and promotion of cultural activities in East Devon. So we developed the ACE brand to support the sector and to give a cohesive visibility. But the brand needs to be supported by a wider cultural and tourism strategy led by East Devon District Council. And the hope is that ACE would serve to differentiate arts and culture as a specific offer. And it's felt that ACE needs to be clear in its responsibilities across art forms and disciplines. So as a group, I would just like to ask the question, is the focus, purpose and activity of ACED clear, given the context of what we've just reviewed through the survey findings? Anne.
Hi. Can I ask, you seem to be concentrating on the now and the future and missing out the art and culture of the past. And I'm in particular talking about Sidmouth. And I think that's very important when we're trying to move the area forward. We have such a rich culture of history, a rich history of culture in Sidmouth from the 1800s onwards. It doesn't seem that history is up on high on the list.
That's a good point. So we haven't mentioned heritage in that sense, or history. I mean, actually, it's a really good point, and I think that we can address that. I think that it's not that I guess the forum isn't there to represent specific knowledge in that way. It's there to potentially connect you to other museums, so you know, in Honiton. But I think within the mission, we can definitely incorporate that. And thank you for flagging.
We do have the East Devon Museum group, so we actually network. But I think that the focus needs to come from the centre, because it isn't just about a museum. It's about the town. It's about the whole package. But I think it should fit somewhere.
Has anyone else got any thoughts on the inclusivity of heritage in museums?
Well, I've got to say, I think it's very useful. I mean, although I've only lived here for 37 years, my family used to live here 100 years ago. And my sister's been doing the history, and she's recently got to the Sidmouth area, because they sort of started in Exeter and slowly moved out. And there's a lovely story she's dug up about a train that used to run along the front at Sidmouth, where they intended to put a, I think, a marina or whatever they wanted, a small harbour, and nothing's there now. But it's a lovely story about this being there and people being able to do it, and about the first ordnance survey map that was done in Sidmouth with a few photographs. No, I think history is important because that leads you through to today. But we do have, I mean, I live in Sidmouth as well, so, we do have a fantastic history, the whole of Devon. I used to live in East Budley, and the history there is fantastic. That's me.
Thank you. And just to throw the question there, I mean, you know, really be great to hear from you all about how the forum will operate, how you see it working for you, how it can be distinguished from other forums that you may be members of.
Can I butt in again?
Yes.
Because I'm Mike Terry, and I'm part of being an actor. I'm treasurer of East Devon. Oh, East Devon. No, I'm treasurer of Devon and Cornwall Equity, and we've been having a lot of meetings recently with cultural groups, mainly Plymouth Culture, who are fantastically well set up, and we're working very hard to develop a film studios in Plymouth, which suits Plymouth and Devon and Cornwall. I've been trying to push for more West Point area, but no, Plymouth's the one they're going for. But you know, we often invite them to come to our meetings and talk about what they're trying to do. We've had Torbay culture come. Exeter culture seems to have disappeared out off the face of the earth, but it is important to talk and to see what other people are doing.
Ruth, I'd like to say something if I can.
Thank you.
I appreciate that lockdown has changed so much. The game has, you know, we've remodeled, everybody's remodeled a lot. And I also think that ACED, absolutely, it's clear where their intentions and this coming together, wanting to provide the linking up of small individual groups doing whatever they're doing, and where they can support. And that's really clear. What I think is interesting is that there's an awful lot of small, brilliant little bright places doing things. And I don't think that the councillors actually even either really know about it or even know what it looks like or what these places can offer in a literally in a looking and coming and seeing, and whether there's a sort of a bus and a tour of some of them so that they can actually see the visual offerings that can actually come into events or into being, or that people can open up. So we're all doing our private stuff, keeping our head above water, and managing, but actually we're all capable of so much more. And I just don't know how. I want to step forward and do the offering and do the, but it is of course a meeting of the two coming together, and we're verbally doing this very well, I think. But I think on the actual physicality, but there's nothing like actually seeing and feeling the quality of the goods or the space or the field or the building or the barn, or where I think a lot of these people, who some I know and some I don't, are probably doing stuff, keeping going and doing stuff very, very well. And there's just a tiny bit of a disconnect, which I don't quite know how you do it, but I think it's on a physical level rather than, I think talking is very important too, of course. And I didn't introduce myself. It's Mary-Ann Mackenzie, and I run a thing called the School of Art and Wellbeing at the top of the hill, just coming outside of Hunton. And we're making our own connections, actually, trying really hard to pull in the big names, connecting with the Newlands School of Art, wherever we can. So we're all sort of trying to cope. We would love that support. Also, of course, marketing, all of that is an incredible help. But we are really open to offering things for no money. You know, we don't need to always be looking for the entry fee or the, and I think lots of people don't even know we're here.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't mind staying small, because we're coping very, very well. But actually, we've got so much more to offer. And I suspect there are other people. I know Fiona certainly has a fantastic thing going on in her area, you know, with you guys. I mean, you do what you can, but how many councillors have been to visit? I don't know. Maybe lots, maybe none. I don't know what the numbers are.
It's a really good point, actually. I think in the just before COVID, Charlie had arranged a cultural tour and was going to bus the councillors around.
Charlie, but I think the bus is it. And I appreciate that whatever ideas people may have had, they completely had to be postponed. So in a way, I'm picking up the threads from over a year ago.
Yeah.
So it's not that people haven't wanted to do it, it's we haven't been able to, but I think this is the opportunity.
I hope this is the first step to just getting a visibility, you know, getting the name out there, and then, you know, the next step would be getting them up there for those shared events.
And I really want to say it's not about, of course we want to be seen, but we absolutely don't have to be making this a money make, you know, it's not about the, oh, we can get more people or we can get people, you know, because anyway, that just happens. But actually it's what are the possibilities with a 7-acre field, which has all the right stuff that needs, you know, and it's flat and we have parking. And I know Fiona the same, she has fantastic facilities. And I just think there's more, and we really want to do the supporting because of the mental health of everybody across the board. Okay, it doesn't matter whether they're children, whether they're, you know, just, it's all here. And I know that other people have similar things to offer. Anyway, that's
brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anne-Marie and Jo from Tidelines.
Hi. I was just going to mention that I'm interested, I guess what I'm interested in terms of my practice, as well as perhaps the forum, or just kind of put it in there, is a sort of democratic forms of organising and governments, because I work a lot with communities and grassroots. And at the moment I'm looking at sociocracy, which is a sort of way of governance which is about creating level platforms and equality of voice. And it might be something that we could experiment with as part of ACED.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, it kind of still, it looks like it's quite a traditional structure, which is a bit pyramidal with the participants and most of the people in the forum, and then you've got the champions, and then you've got the point of access to the council. And it might be nice to just play with other formats that are a bit more democratic and experimental.
Yeah, we can definitely. I mean, the forum exactly that is to break down the model of what has been quite formulaic, and we're setting it out so that it can it has its key pillars. But I think definitely there is scope to challenge inclusion in that way.
Yeah, there's a local cooperative called In My Backyard, who are a new sort of network of local food growers, and they're setting up as kind of co-op status, and they're trying to experiment with that sociocracy now. And I just think, if we're setting up a new organisation, why don't we at least try?
Yeah.
Different
one area as well that Anna Arusi will be looking at is how to include the youth voice here as well. Thank you. Louise Coles.
Hi, thanks, Ruth. Yeah, I'm Louise Cole, and I've got two hats on, I guess, today. One is as a Sidmouth Town Councillor. I'm chair of the Tourism and Economy Committee, but I also am a director of a small local arts, culture and heritage organisation called Sidmouth Coastal Community Hub. So we're organisers of Sidmouth Sea Fest and do a number of different kind of projects across those three kind of areas of arts and culture. And we're lucky enough to have been awarded Arts Council funding recently as well. So we're about to launch quite a high profile arts project in Sidmouth Billboard project with some quite high profile artists and photographers as well, and also working to improve and increase and include young people's voice. And it's partly a response to mental health and wellbeing, COVID response, but really also kind of expanding that idea around we all have creativity within us. We're often shut down, and that opportunities are closed off kind of early. So it's about engaging new audiences, very much about public viewing spaces, outdoors and active. I'm really delighted to be here. I thank Ruth for her hard work, and I think it's a really positive strategic approach, as Charlie outlined, and I really welcome it. I think we have so much talent and so many small, really wonderful offers and opportunities across the whole of East Devon, and a lot of us are working on kind of a very much a voluntary basis or a very small scale. So I'm always berating myself because our marketing is not strong enough. We don't always have enough funds to do what we really want to do. We've got tons of ideas, and we just bring forward kind of the small scale stuff, and we're kind of just stepping into a bit more I guess high profile through years and years of hard work and developing relationships, all those kind of things. So as I say, we've got a really considerable Arts Council grant for a year's project, which is part of the COVID response cultural funding. It's such an important time for arts and culture, and there's such a breadth of things. So I really welcome the role of this forum to be a cohesive strategic platform. And I think it absolutely has to focus on looking at funding opportunities where we can collaborate and bring together some of those skills, but also, as you've said, helping across everybody to help with the kind of small scale nature of some of the massive variety of offers and particular specialisms. And I think from that, developing relationships where, as you've said in your document that you shared earlier, that there are opportunities for people to do more interesting, more diverse collaboration. So I think that's really, really welcome. And I absolutely think it's so key for our economic recovery post-COVID as well. There's plenty of evidence around the economic impact in a positive way around the additional offers for people, for visitors to places, through a really kind of open and visual connected arts and culture offer in whatever location it might be. So I think the two absolutely go hand in hand.
Yeah, we're really delighted that we have had this opportunity, and it's so timely that it synergises with the Arts Council's Let's Create strategy, and we have such political support. And we really do feel, as you say, that after COVID, that we'll be playing such a critical role. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your project. John Astley.
Yes, thank you, Ruth. I'm the sociologist of culture in your others, by the way. So obviously I'm very interested in the general discussion about the nature of culture that's been going on. I would make a clear distinction between the culture of a group of people on the one hand, which includes all their know-how, experience and sets of beliefs, with the actual artifacts are produced, material culture, whatever that might be, dance, fine art, etc., etc. So we need to keep those in mind all the time. I'm particularly interested in the educational role of the arts, particularly the educational role for creating a greater democracy, and the way in which there's can be a clear function for the arts in an educational role in a particular community, in a neighborhood. So I'm working in Exmouth at the moment in setting up adult community education activities, and I'm working towards, once we can all get together much more, I'm working towards establishing a local learning exchange in Exmouth. And I've already been talking to a lot of people who are arts practitioners of various kinds in Exmouth, in order to bring those people together so that we can provide a learning exchange and to encourage people who wouldn't otherwise see themselves as artists to contribute their experience, their know-how and their ideas about how we can improve the life of people in somewhere like Exmouth in terms of a clear educational strategy. So that's what I'm up to at the moment.
Wow.
And I'll be very interested in anybody else's ideas of a similar nature. And if you want a champion for education with a small or a big E, then I'm quite happy to do that.
Delighted. Yes, you're signed up. And Ruthie, is there anyone else on the questions?
Not that I'm aware of. I think everyone that was either waving their hand or had put the... Oh, Sarah maybe has one.
Sorry, that was a last minute hand. Yeah, no, I'm just sort of thinking about the challenges of when it's good to have breadth and when it's good to have depth. And also the old adage about a camel is a horse designed by committee, you know, and I think it's really tricky sometimes when you've got a lot of stakeholders to actually get movement. And what I like about the categories that you've suggested, having options to focus around funding or to focus around learning or to focus around collaboration, I can see that there'd be opportunities for different subgroups at different moments to come together. So you've got channels of engagement. So if you have a common interest where there is a new grant coming up and there's a particular aspect of it that a number of people in this group would be relevant to have those opportunities to kind of do that focus work, but then return to the mothership so that that kind of strategic overarching direction is held. And I think that might help where people can sort of dive into different areas as we go.
I think that's a really good point. I think there does need to be that set structure so that we are still aligned to the political drivers to get that buy-in. I'll just introduce you, Sarah. Sarah Campbell is the Associate Director of Arts and Culture at the University of Exeter and a big champion of the Thelma Holbert Gallery and all of our activity here in East Devon, and is also on the committee of Thelma Holbert. So delighted to have your input. I might just return now to my PowerPoint and just a few more updates unless there's any further questions or comments or anything at all, because this is the sort of the sharing section of the forum. So if anyone has anything they'd like to share before we go back to my very dry PowerPoint. No? Okie doke. So I think just to cap that off in terms of the branding, I think the general thrust and activity of ACED is really understood and supported. I think it is worth saying that what the hope is that there will be a wider tourism strategy for East Devon, and so that our ACED will slot into that. So a lot of the marketing visibility and that campaign will bolster us. It can't be the focus of ACED, because it's clear that it's on quite a different track, but it will be very important that we do work in tandem with that cultural and tourism strategy when it is launched. So that's the new branding. So last time we all got together in the first forum in February, we were talking about the AIR fund, which is being drawn down from central government. And I know that I've had a few questions around the application process and the timescales. And here is just a few of those answers to those key questions. I'm disappointed to say that the fund's not going to be released until July now. And Charlie Plowden is on the line to take any questions around that. But we're still feeling positive, and our role here at ACE is just to ensure that information reaches you in a timely way, and that there is a fair distribution of that fund to the cultural sector. Charlie, would you like to say any more?
Sorry, Ruth, I was waiting for some questions. Yeah, there's a report that's going to Cabinet about this in May, in a couple of weeks, which should give a little bit more of a sort of definitive pathway for how the AIR Fund's going to work. Just, I think, for people to be aware, you're probably very aware, actually, there's a huge amount of funding that's been passed to local authorities to get out to support particularly our business sector, and these seem to be arriving on a fairly regular basis. So we're just getting through the current funding package, which as a consequence has delayed the AIR Fund sort of launch, and that's why there's been a delay. So the conversations I've had with the head of department for this particular fund is still confident that it will go ahead, as Ruth said, in July. It's just that there's just a huge job at the moment to sort of deal with the current tranche of money that's come down to us from government to get out to businesses. So as with all of this, it's sort of very sort of, immediate. But the message coming out is that we're still feeling very positive. So I think it's just watch this space. And I assume, Ruth, with everybody who's participated here, we've got email addresses, etc., that as soon as we hear something, we can communicate that out.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, because there's nothing sort of specific. So the principles that have been outlined are still there. It's just the timing. That's the issue about sort of moving from one specific grant to the next. So that's the delay, and the government have sort of indicated that that the next tranche of money will not be passed down to us until this current lot has sort of gone out, in a very non-technical description of where we're at.
Thanks, Charlie. And I guess, I mean, I'm sure you've all read the prospectus for the grant, but a big thrust of it was encouraging working in partnership and collaboration. And the hope is that this network will put a spotlight on all the different voices in East Devon and potentially reveal partnership opportunities that you could take forward with that grant. Any questions on that before I move on? So yes, this is just to review the format of the future meetings. And I'm just going to hand over to my colleague, who you've all been in touch with already, Fiona Page-Turner, who is coordinating the ACED forum.
Hello, everybody. Yes, so the format of future meetings, what we're going to do is we still have the level 1, which is how the forum used to operate. And this is led by the East Devon District Council steering group of councillors. And there will be 2 of those meetings a year. And then the next level, which is this forum, which is really for network members, that's you, that's the creative practitioners, the organisations. We will have 3 of those meetings a year. And at the moment it's on Zoom, but hopefully at some point we'll be able to all meet and have a proper networking meeting. And then we will also have a bi-monthly newsletter. And that's really just to update you on the latest news and grants, and particularly what Charlie was saying, when we get opportunities like the Air Fund, we can let you know as soon as possible. And if we switch to the next slide, Ruth, can you? And you'll see just from the survey that, you know, one of the that everybody wanted to sign up to a newsletter, so it was a handy thing to have. But the networking event was quite high up in people's wish list of things that I think would really help for the sharing and engagement going forward. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to share in the newsletter, please email me on info@thelmahalbert.com. And we also have an ACED webpage with all the latest information, and that's currently being hosted on the thelmahalbert.com website. So please go and have a look at that. And we will be posting on social media any updates too. Thank you. Anybody, any questions about that?
Okay, okay. Thank you. So the next section is just about the future meetings. So that's the general agenda that we're looking at. But as was the same with Anne-Marie, you know, there is so much.
Oh, sorry, Ruth. Mayor from Villages in Action had a question.
Sorry, I was a bit slow on the old hand up. Hello, Mara from Villages in Action, the touring scheme covering southern Devon. Obviously do a lot of our work in East Devon. It was just a question, really practical one about the newsletter. So that newsletter would be for us as members rather than necessarily going out to a sort of public audience, is that right? I'm just thinking about, in terms of making some of those collaborations, we are obviously sort of spread across a fairly wide geographical area, so we're not always, you know, in necessarily all the kind of same meetings or that sort of thing. So, you know, I've got an idea. We're going to be supporting young people through the Kickstart scheme. So for people who don't know, that's the government funding to support 16 to 24-year-olds who are on universal credit. As everybody knows, you know, young people entering the sort of arts and culture world have been the hardest hit really at the moment. So I'm just wondering, yeah, who that audience is and how we can use that to then sort of join up with each other. I assume it's we send you a sort of brief detail of something and put our contact details in. Is that how it will work?
Yes, if you can send us any information like that, and it'll go out to members who joined up. There'll be a newsletter sign up, so anybody who joins these meetings, and we'll develop hopefully a really strong database of all the arts and culture creators and organisations, festivals, and then we can all share that amongst ourselves. So yes, just email me, Mayor, and we can make sure we include that. And
thank you.
And as Ruth said, sorry, I didn't mention the future meetings. The format for those is we'll give some updates from East End District Council, and then we'll have a roundup of all the funding updates. And we will have a guest speaker each time, or one of the champions. So if anybody would like to put themselves forward, please do so. And any discussion topics you're interested in, please do that as well. So that should be, we'll have a sort of a core strategy for each of the meetings, which you can all feed into.
There's a couple of other questions. One from Wendy, and I think Charlie's also raised his hand. So we maybe go to Wendy first.
Yeah, I was going to answer Wendy's question.
Okay, cool.
I think Wendy's asking about the Air Fund panel, who's going to be representing potentially the cultural sort of sector, because obviously that's a strand within the Air Fund. I think is that right, Wendy?
Yes, indeed, it is, Charlie. Yeah.
Okay, good point. And Ruth and I have highlighted this to internal officers about this, that I think the panel is going to be made up of councillors making that sort of decision, which is consistent with the current, without boring you, the current fund that they're administering. So we're keen to ensure that we obviously have a portfolio holder that covers culture, and also we have a cultural champion. So I'm hoping that one or both of those will be involved on the panel. But again, just to say that we have picked this up, and obviously it makes complete sense to have that sort of level of understanding and knowledge to be able to be able to consider the applications coming through.
Charlie, would we be able to organise the Sharerbang before then, so that we can all go around and see everybody, and the councillors can all go around and see everybody?
Yeah, what do you mean with the Sharerbang? I love the idea of this, Wendy. What's that involve? You got your mute on, Wendy.
Sorry, yeah, I've only just turned it off. I keep dropping out here. It's impossible this morning, but yeah. Did you hear what I said? Yeah,
what's the Sharerbang involve?
The Sharerbang involves us going around and seeing everybody else's work and what they're doing in, in various, like Anne-Marie Wilmot's wonderful place up on the hill. And it actually will be inspiring as well to think about how we can collaborate and what different ideas and things we can chuck into the melting pot. But I was thinking, yeah, a good idea for councillors or whoever's on that forum on the Air Fund panel to perhaps see our work as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Wendy. I think it's really important. I think that will help with the visibility and the relevance of the ACED network, and for councillors, as you quite rightly say, to be exposed to, it's been important to obviously promote the gallery, our theatres, etc. But we want to expand this out. So I think working with you guys to put forward a programme to be able to do that. And it may be that because there's so much going on in the district that it's not just one Sharerbang, but it's a series of them, because we're a large rural district, and being able to get sort of councillors all together is sort of quite challenging. So maybe we look at a sort of targeted programme, whether it's by locality or thematic, something that's well worth sort of discussing. But yeah, absolutely up for that, Wendy.
And Anne-Marie had a question. Are the executive membership meetings different to the network meetings? And if so, what are they? So the executive membership is the East Devon District Council councillors. So it's more of a strategic meeting, and it's on quite a set format. And these network members, which is us, it's much more of an information sharing, collaborative meeting. So one's more strategic and this one's more sharing, if that helps.
The one, the executive one will be live on Zoom as well, so that it is, well, you can still attend those, they're still open. It's not that they're closed, but it's just that this one is much more sector specific, except for sector support. So that the executive member has a certain constitution written into EDDC.
So Ian Bowden's got a question as well. If you'd like to unmute yourself, Ian.
Hi everybody. Hi Charlie. It's a question for Charlie really. Couple of things really. What is the time process in based so when the fund is released and when you put an application together for whatever cultural whatever we'd like to get funding for through ACED, what is the time process? How long does it take once we've actually submitted an application? So that's one question. And is the fund there to help projects and for us to develop culture and tourism and art in 2021, 2022 and 2023? How long is that money going to be available to help? And I apologise if I haven't seen the criteria, if I missed a few minutes of when you were speaking at the beginning, Charlie. So that was just a couple of questions.
No worries, Ian. I will try to answer some of those. It's a shame that we haven't got Andy here actually to answer. Andy would. In terms of the criteria, the consultation that sort of went out, my understanding, I don't know if everyone saw sight of some of the information that went out on the Air Fund. My understanding is, subject to internal corrections, is that's still the criteria we're working to. So the timing, because of the delay in releasing the Air Fund, I think I can't give you a definitive answer in terms of when it will be sort of rolled out, and so therefore how long the process will take. Obviously, it depends on the number of applications that come through, because there are a number of criteria. Culture is obviously one of those funding elements to the overall Air Fund, along with 3 or 4 others. So in terms of the advice, the criteria, what I'm expecting is that following the cabinet discussion this May, which is in a couple of weeks' time, that we'll be able to release, certainly the economic development team who are administering it, will be able to release the criteria, and I'll be able to answer those more specific questions. I think what they're seeking is sort of guidance on when the fund can actually be released, and therefore to be able to give a lot more information, because the process was started back, I think it was the end of March or middle of March, and then it's effectively being put on hold. So we're all like you. I mean, I'm in the same camp as you, Ian. I'm keen to know as much about how we can progress this, so that the cultural sector can benefit massively from this opportunity to help with our recovery funding. And that's what it's really about. It's been touched on by a number of speakers, that we're seeing as an opportunity to really help support and help to recover the cultural sector, which is already been discussed as the hardest hit sort of part of the economy. So we're keen to get that out as soon as possible. So maybe again through the network, Fiona sort of mentioned through the newsletter, there's something that comes out from that cabinet meeting, and we'll get the information out to everyone as soon as, because I'm sure there are a number of you who are ready to go with putting an application in, and I'm acutely aware of that. So that's why we're trying to press to find out what's going on, so we can give you that reassurance. There's nothing underhand or sinister going on. It's literally just volume of work within that small team with getting the current round of business support package out to businesses before we now move on to the next package of business support that the Treasury's given us. So I know those guys back at head office are working hard on it at the moment. So don't worry, Ian. We have your interests at heart.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie.
I'm aware that some people might have missed the first forum where we introduced the Air Fund. I know Charlie's obviously just given a bit of context there, but we'll share the prospectus out again so you can see the criteria after the Zoom. Anyone?
John Ashley has another question.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the Sharerbang issue, please. I mean, every single councillor that makes up EDDC is a representative of a particular constituency. So within that constituency of that particular councillor, whoever there is, there will be lots of artistic activity going on. So rather than have some kind of top-down Sharerbang going around the district council, it might be better to have a much more bottom-up approach to collating and collecting and informing. If every single councillor became more aware, that's not to say they aren't already aware of all of the activity and the people that are engaged in arts, educational or otherwise, within their own particular neck of the woods, they need to find that out, and perhaps people need to prompt them, or perhaps every councillor should be tasked to make sure that there is at least some coordinator within their constituency, who is making sure that people are aware of what's going on, where the routes the funding are, what kind of networking could be possible. Those councillors need to be informed themselves of what possibilities for networking there are. So that sounds a bit like outreach work, but it's outreach work from a very positive grassroots point of view. Let's get people at the grassroots informing, encouraging, driving their councillors forward in terms of a much more active engagement with what's happening to the arts, and do it that way.
And I think Michael Terry has a question too.
Yeah, it wasn't really a question. It's first of all, two things. First to John, education is terribly important. I mentioned Equity's Devon and Cornwall Zoom meeting yesterday. This was for students of film, and it was teaching them, first of all, best practice, and also where funding was available. And there is quite a lot of funding around. It's not always obvious to find, but it is there. And it was to tell them how to get the funding and everything else. And the second was to say, I don't know whether Ruth or anyone else would be willing to come along to one of our, we don't call them meetings now, we call them get-togethers on Zoom, and just talk about what is happening. Because the more we talk together, the more we get together, the more we help the arts, whatever the art is. Because art covers a vast amount, and it is so important, I think, to the nation. And for me, to East Devon.
I'd be very happy to talk at any forum or group in East Devon as is useful going forward, just to bang the drum of arts and culture and the purpose of ACED. So yes.
Thank you. It'll be the whole Devon and Cornwall, mind you.
Okay. I've got an empty diary at the moment anyway, so it's fine. Any more questions? Okay, so yeah, I'd just like to end on just a sense of sort of collectivity, really, that it is early days, it's the embryonic stage of the forum, and we really want everyone to feel ownership and to help shape it with us. So we won't have all the answers, all the solutions, but please, we'll all work together and do something quite special. We are disappointed that Arts Council aren't here, because I can't tell you the support that we've had for the forum going forward in the way that we're, as a district, responding to the COVID through cultural innovation. So I hope that you're as proud as I am in terms of our approach. And as Charlie said, it really does feel that this is the moment really where we can embed arts and culture and make it as visible and collaborative as possible. And we're finishing slightly early because we don't have Paul today, but the next time you'll hear from us will be in our newsletter, and we'll collate all the feedback and disseminate the information that's been shared in the chat and the PowerPoints. Any other business before we close?
Did we want to do the poll?
Oh, the poll. This is a bit of technical brilliance from Anna.
Well, or not. This is we're all on a learning curve here, but we set up a little poll just to capture some of your thoughts. So I'll launch that now, and if you've got a minute to, there's only 5 questions, so it shouldn't take too long. Hopefully you can all see that.
Perhaps we should close it there.
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you everyone. That's really helpful.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thank you all so much. Thank you for the fabulous technical expertise, Anna, Fiona and Gemma. Thank you, Charlie, for stepping in, and thank you for all participating, and look forward to seeing you all again very soon.
Well, thank you for all your efforts.
Okay. Bye then. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Bye, guys.
Bye.